Hello and welcome to the very first episode of the Interweave Podcast. We are super excited to finally get this live and we cannot continue. Super excited. So on today's episode, which happens to be our very first episode, we have an interesting topic to talk about. We're talking about survive and thrive in a long distance relationship. And we have a very exciting expert, resource person who is very knowledgeable in relationship law. Everything you want to know. So, glad to have you on board with that.
Yeah, how are you doing?
We're doing good. How about you?
I'm alright, thank you.
Okay, so we're talking about long distance relationship, how to survive and thrive in long distance relationships. So our first question would be, what exactly are long distance relationship? Because people do not really understand, what it's all about. So could you throw more light on what a long distance relationship is, the scope of a long distance relationship?
Well, for me, long distance relationship would be anything that bites at your pocket and bites at your convenience.
Okay.
Because, if, for instance, you have a girlfriend who is in Abuja and you're in Lagos, and your economy together is not good enough, you know that it will only take an incident for her to come to Lagos, or if you will be able to see, or an incident for you to go to Abuja, for you people to see. So the long distance relationship becomes very evident when you do not have the economy to close the gap. And again, physically, which is where the convenience comes in, you cannot see at will. Emotionally, is also an issue because expressions of emotions are always subject to interpretation over that distance. And most of the time, where there's no maturity, they can be misrepresented or misinterpreted, as the case may be.
Okay, that sounds like a whole lot of work. So, with everything that you've said now, seems like a whole lot of work. So, how can couples in long distance relationship be able to, communicate and still keep their intimacy alive? So, what are the strategies for communicating in long distance relationships?
The strategy begins with being an adult, understanding why in the first place you have to be in.
So, are you saying long distance relationships are not for children?
Well, if children say they're in a long distance relationship, the relationship may not necessarily mean the relationship that the adults would mean. So they can afford to have friends who are across borders.
Okay.
So the subject, like I said, the subject to interpretation. But when you're talking about a proper praying relationship between adults who agree to date each other and who know that they are, far from each other, that takes a lot of maturity. First of all, long distance relationships do not just happen. It boils down to the quality of people who discover what they want in each other and decide that the distance does not make any difference to them. So if I'm to answer your question, you said
how to keep the communication alive and how to, intimacy, how to use.
First of all, it's very difficult to be in a long distance relationship if you do not love the person. That's why I said the quality of person. Because the reason why you leave the people close to you to date somebody who is very far from you boils down to the quality.
Okay.
It starts with quality before you end up inconvenienced. So, if the quality of person is right, then you down the consequences of what a long distance can bring. Now, how do you keep in touch? Now, that love And that respect helps you to continue to, be on the phone, the communication, video calls. Fortunately, we have good technology now. You can be on the phone, audio calls. You can be on the phone, video calls. You can do Zoom, video, audios. You can text, you can chat. You keep it going. And that's where the quality comes in, because the quality emphasizes that the both of you have a lot in common. Or one person has a lot he needs to learn from the other. Or one person admires, or you both admire each other in certain ways and have so many things in common, which breed the foundation for a lot of the communication that exists between a couple that enable them to maintain and sustain their bond.
Absolutely.
Because when you say, what sustains the long-term relationship, you must keep in touch. There's a foundation that drives keeping in touch. If not, it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
Because somebody you cannot see, you cannot touch, you cannot feel naturally as a human being, out of sight is out of mind.
Yeah.
So that is why the quality of the person plays a very huge role on the mind of the people who are involved in a long-distance relationship.
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's very deep. I was thinking you'd probably give us some pointers, but this is deeper than getting pointers on how to communicate in a long-distance relationship. So, for people who are in a long-distance relationship, how do they deal with trust issues? Or how can they deal with trust issues? Does it also fall back to, what you said initially about communicating and the quality of the relationship that they have with this person?
We live in a world today that nothing is in black and white anymore. Everything we experience, every circumstance that we undergo as human beings has great shades of grey. There are unbelievable compromises that go in relationships that, if they are openly discussed, begin to point towards some form of faultiness or some form of default or some form of abnormality, as it may be. Now, trust shouldn't be the quality to build the foundation of the relationship. The foundation of every relationship should begin with respect. And trust is the product of respect.
Exactly.
Now, I always caution a lot of men who say, I trust my girlfriend. Or I trust my wife.
That's a risky thing.
I see it as derogatory. You can trust your dog, for God's sake. You can trust your pussycat. You can trust your monkey. You can trust your parrot. So trust is born out of respect. And respect is not born out of a situation of where mentally it begins to look like you're doing the other person a favor. Respect is when you see your partner as your equal, true and true. And when you see your partner as your equal, true and true, you understand fundamentally that whatever they do comes from an informed mind.
Okay. Yeah.
And that they are in charge of their lives at every given moment in time. So, that respect you give yourself is the same respect you must extend to your partner. And then it picks up from there. As human beings, we are not equal. The church preaches humility so that, we can be more amiable, I assume. But in reality, human beings are not the same. We are differentiated by class, by education, by exposure, by upbringing, by what we see, what we feel, what we touch, what kind of contents that we experience, that we undergo. Like I always make a proverb, I said, you cannot compare a child who grew up watching Aki and Popo with a child that grew up watching cartoons. They are completely two different individuals. Exactly. So everything is subject to the interpretation of the level of development of the minds involved in this relationship. On the grass, on the floor of it all, there are women that do not mind some levels of emotional abuse. There are women that do not mind some levels of mental abuse. And now what do I mean by that? They know that their partners are cheating.
Okay.
But they don't see it as a big deal. Because the underlying factors that they have together. Yes. So that's why I said it varies in degrees of understanding, in degrees of communication, in degrees of openness. So it all boils down to what you are willing to discuss and what you are willing to pretend it is not a play. So when it comes to trust, you don't focus on trust, you focus on respect. You give room for mistake. You give room for errors of margin. And you focus on the individual and not what they do that is wrong, that you think is wrong or right.
Okay, absolutely. Like that's a lot, that's a lot. I was going to ask you the next question. What's the best advice you give to couples in long distance relationships on how to handle conflicts and disagreements?
Your question is not specific.
My question is, how can couples in long distance relationships deal with conflict and disagreement?
Okay. Like I said before, the foundation of every long distance relationship, for those who decide to be into it, boils down to you cannot do without this person. This is the quality of person that you want, and unfortunately this person is across the border. Okay. Usually that's it how it is. Or that's how it should be. Of course, there are indicators where people out of some level of some personal form of sadness, they may choose to have people who are far away so that they can enjoy some measure of freedom. I'll call it just, enjoy some measure of freedom.
Okay.
So when it comes to conflicts, like I said, it boils down to respect. Now, there are people who, if somebody came to you and said, "Hey, I saw your husband at the so hotel by 2 a.m. in the morning, and then it was with some woman, blah blah blah." If you have a respectable relationship, the first thing that comes to your mind is not alarm.
Okay.
The first thing that comes to your mind is, what is this person's business? You understand? Because you are not complaining.
Yeah.
You're not trying to reach your partner and you cannot reach the person.
So why are you giving me this information?
So that it begins from there. That's why I said the respect is the foundation.
Respect.
Understand?
So I think respect being, a foundation is really going to help, couples in long distance relationship.
Oh yeah.
Respect actually solves all of the problem.
Yes, you have to mutually respect each other, have an understanding for each other's decisions, and be willing to exercise measures of openness.
Okay.
That create comfort in your partner. Because when you create measures of openness, for instance, when incidences like this come, where people try to play spoiler, you are able to do the arithmetic in your mind because you know who your partner is. Oh, he's somewhere by 2 o'clock in the morning at so hotel. Oh, he plays football on the island by so time. He eats fish and this, anything could have been happening at that time.
So your alarm is not ticking.
You understand? So your alarm is not triggering or, because when there is that lack of respect, then there is doubt.
Okay.
And where there is doubt, then there is need for trust. And the trust becomes a home assignment that must always be given every week and will be updated.
Okay. That's very interesting. Well, how about, because, you've been looking at it from the point of, two adults who have agreed to get into this thing. How about a situation where, it just happens? Like, let's say, for example, in Nigeria, we usually have these cases where men come back to Nigeria from abroad and they decide to pick a lady, marry her, and they leave her here and go back to wherever they are from. And in most cases, these ladies don't even know this man. They don't know anything about it. They just know that I'm married to an abroad man, and their relationship is just like that. So how do they still deal with the conflict and challenges that comes up in their relationship?
Now, the subject of status, economy, exposure, upbringing plays a critical role in this thing. An informed person, an informed woman, a woman who is informed, educated, and exposed, may not want to marry a man that she does not know. May not want to marry a man that she has not spent time with. May not want to subject herself to trusting that her parents know better.
Okay. You're taking us to somewhere somewhat, deeper than...
because it's complex. It's complicated.
Very complex.
What the aristocrats will do is different from what the people from the grassroots will do.
Exactly.
And what the people from the grassroots will do is people from... Because the person you're talking about now may be struggling. I may see, for instance, this man comes from Germany, will make my life better. She's focused on how her life will be better.
So she doesn't really care about, the rest of the...
Yeah, she's not involved in the process. Situation now. Hunger is a primary pivot that is driving her decision making. It has nothing to do with emotion. It has nothing to do with intelligence. It has nothing to do with her background. It has more to do with her economic status.
So in that case, she doesn't even know what she's getting into. And then she just goes into it. And then at the end of the day, she's complaining.
Whatever she's getting into,
coming and all of that.
whatever she's getting into does not matter at the time. The most important thing to her is her economic salvation. So that's why I said it varies in degrees of perspective and understanding.
So with this now, I think you're actually giving us, a breakdown of why people get into long-term relationships. It could be for their financial salvation. Some people, it could be, I love this person. There's no other person that I love that's around that matches my interests. So you've actually answered that question, which was supposed to be the next question I was going to ask you. Why do people get into long-distance relationship? So are there other reasons aside from these reasons that we have pointed out? Could there be other reasons why people get into long-distance relationships?
Convenience and even frustration. Yes.
Wow.
There are incidents of frustration where people look around and say, hey,
no man around likes me.
Okay, for instance, I know a situation of women who are more sophisticated than the environments that they live in. And because of that, they have to look outwards.
Okay.
Feed that mental need that only the men outside the scope of their geography can
actually meet.
Can complement. So imagine a lady who comes in from America and who lives somewhere like I don't want to mention names, but suburbs, maybe in the east or in the south. For instance, when I was in the south town, but I discovered that socially it was okay for men to be verbally abusive of women, to be verbally porous.
Yeah.
Just say see on Yashu, sexualized conversation. But everything that boils down to what I would call sexual harassment in black and white, but accepted in that side. So if you come from the States or you come from England and you are all prime and tush and you find yourself in those kind of environment, it will be seen that you can't fit in. And to be able to elevate yourself from that point, you have to look outwards for the people who do not follow this narrative.
Yeah.
And these people come and go. So when they come, you discover, you don't live in Port Harcourt. Oh, no, I live in Lagos, or I live in Abuja, or I live in Kaduna. And you'll be like, wow. And that's the beginning of how long-distance relationships can be born.
Wow.
That's a form of semi-frustration that even the person involved
doesn't even know they are frustrated.
Even by frustration.
Wow. Okay, our next question would be, what challenges can couples in long-distance relationship face?
The challenges are obvious. If it's a sexualized relationship, you can't have sex when you want.
Wow.
You can't touch when you want. You can't meet when you want.
So
you can't do anything when you want to.
Practically, there's nothing. In fact, I think long distance relationship are few more challenges than.
Yeah, they are very, very challenging. And even if you don't know what you want and you go into it, you will get the education that is not meant for you.
Wow. Could you expand on that?
Simply once dive into relationships, so, very good looking. He's well spoken, and then you discover in a month you haven't seen him, and you are drifting away, and then you begin to discover, okay, his good looks and his diction, they matter after all. This distance,
absolutely, it's driving crazy.
It's more an issue for me, and I'm dying, and I'm finding a way, and I'm beginning to do things that ordinarily I would not want to do, or subject myself to certain temptations that ordinarily I would not subject myself to. And begin to feel that in the first place, this is not,
this is not for me. It's not my thing. I fit no. I can't deal. So with all those challenges, do you think people should get into long-term relationships?
The essence of options is for people to be able to exercise.
Okay.
It has to be there. There are people who have succeeded in long-distance relationships. There are people who have built solid relationships. Because one of the key advantages of building long-distance relationships is that the individuals involved build character. They build character.
Wow.
They build a strong bond because in this case, out of sight increases your respect and increases demand for you and allows for greater perspective with your person, your qualities, and the advantages of being with you, which enables the people involved to strive to close that understanding.
Wow. Interesting. So, our very last question for you, Mr. X. Are there any benefits or rewards that come with, getting into a long-distance relationship?
Like I just mentioned, you build character. And character is one of the strongest points in any relationship. If you have no character in a relationship, you have nothing.
Are there other rewards, or to just stick to
rewards? Is you get to know each other better, but more importantly, you get to know yourself. Because if you do not know yourself, you always bring half of yourself to the table in a relationship, which is what happens most of the time. People do not know themselves. They don't know themselves enough to be able to represent themselves fully in a relationship. And so because of that, they sell misrepresentations of themselves to their partners. Not their fault, but because they've not taken their time to look themselves. And taking your time to really to know yourself means giving yourself the gift of being able to be by yourself.
Aloneness.
A lot of people go mad. They cannot be by themselves. But when you are able to master the discipline of being by yourself, of loving yourself, of intricately looking in, of mastering what your weaknesses and your strengths are, and when you master who you are, and you need to bring yourself fully to the table in a relationship.
Absolutely. This is okay. Mr. X, you have something else to say before.
One more thing I have to say, which is the spiritual side, which we can touch. People who are in the habit of having what I call convenient relationship. Convenient relationships are born of the fact that the person is close by and the person meets your immediate needs, immediate emotional and mental and physical needs.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily qualify the person to be a long-term partner in your life. There are people who have used their boyfriends to make husbands and made their husbands their boyfriends. There are people who their destiny husbands or wives were in faraway lands. But because they had the habit of always wanting to date people who were close to them, they shortchanged themselves. They shortchanged their happiness.
So you should look beyond
You have to
confidence.
look beyond that. And you have to, like I said, it has to boil down to what are you looking for in a partner, not where is he.
Like we had a very wonderful conversation. Like you took those things beyond the depth that I was expecting. And it was very enlightening. It was very educating. So in summary, guys, we are not strong enough. If you don't have the emotional intelligence, please avoid long-distance relationships. It's not for children. It's for mature adults who know what they are getting into and I'm willing to sacrifice whatever it takes to make it work. So thank you for listening, and I hope you got one or two things, for people who are in long-distance relationship, something that can actually help. Brings us to the end of today's episode or the Interweave Podcast, how to survive and thrive in a long-distance relationship. I hope you are able to pick out something to help your relationship. It doesn't matter if you're even in a close proximity relationship. These tips can actually help you. Until our next episode, do well to subscribe, like, listen, tell a friend to join the Interweave Podcast. Thank you so much.